Okay, so carrying on from the previous video, we'll start with Robert. Robert, come on, video. There we go. So when we watch this, I think your character's a little. Your squash and stretch seems a little. Like it hits and maybe carries on a little long. Um, like the ripple and it carries on a little long, and like it's maybe a touch too much squash and stretch for the amount of jump you're getting. You're also getting little things like this when you jump up in the air and then some force turns the character around before it comes down. So I think you need to like feel like you're adding that turn in to the jump originally. As he goes up, it's like he's pushing off at an angle to make that turn. Otherwise, it just feels like some other external force twisted him. I think it needs a reasonable amount of polish. You get stuff like the character does kind of slow down on this landing as it comes in, and you've already got it squashed like here instead of still stretching before it hits the ground. The tail's blowing through the floor. Um, I think the biggest offender on this one is just how far away we are. Like the staging in this just could really be improved just by pushing it in as close as you can get it. Like the staging is how can we best present the acting or the action that happens in the animation, and we got all of this area over here and all of this area up here that just isn't even displaying anything. So I think you could really trim that up, really tighten this staging up, and then I think playing with the timing, playing with the sort of the deformations, and really getting that to work a little bit better, and just being a little bit more careful about little things like the tail blowing to the floor and stuff like that. Okay, Spencer. Okay, Spencer, yours is actually pretty good. You got a lot of deformation. You got a lot of nice stuff going on with the tail. You may be able to do a little bit less twinning on the antenna. The thing I think that is happening on yours is your character's hitting a pose and kind of locking in it a little bit. So, for example, this one isn't as bad. It's kind of moving around, but when it pops up in this pose, the ball itself kind of hits that pose and then doesn't change for maybe 10 frames there. And so what you want is you want to hit very close to it, but you want to have what's called a moving hold, which is where your pose is really close, but you don't have any pixels that just stop moving entirely because they're the same every frame. And because that feels like a part of the character just kind of dies on screen then. And you get another one here, like it hits this point and just kind of sticks there. As opposed to like this part where it hits it and kind of keeps moving around just a touch, just like maybe just sort of eases into it just a touch. Otherwise, like a lot of this motion's really good. But I think a little bit of that would really go a long way, and you get some stuff like these antennas just kind of stop for a while. So I think you could play around with that and get just a little bit more polish, and it would really go a long ways. But I like the personality that's coming through in this one. Okay, Victoria. There you go. I think that you have two issues, maybe three going on in here. Maybe two. We'll try three. Your character, when it lands, you get this sort of squash, but then it kind of has this jiggle that happens it feels almost systematically, and it's just a little too big, and it's just a little too much on each of them. It just makes it feel very rubbery and jello-y. So I think kind of toning that down a little bit, um, I think you also kind of have that thing that we mentioned earlier with a couple of them where all the poses are kind of hitting at the same time. So you see it a lot on the turns up here when it's looking around at the top of the box. Gets up here and it's kind of like it goes. Let's see. It hits this pose, and then it hits this pose, and then it hits this pose, and then it hits this pose, and everything is kind of hitting those poses all at the same time, and it really just needs to break it up so it doesn't all feel like it's hitting at the same time. There's that, the squishiness, and then I think you got just a little bit of some of the stuff in here. Oh, no, this actually looks pretty good, the angles you kind of got going on here. I think you kind of angle the, sorry, microphone slipped here. I think you kind of angle the way the character comes in on these landings and stuff, but you know, that's actually a little bit more nitpicky. But yeah, I think maybe building in a little bit more overlapping action to some of the limbs too, to the tail and the antenna. And I think I have one more in here. Charity. Charity, your squash and stretch and everything is looking pretty good in here. And I think a lot of your poses are looking good. Your timing's actually looking pretty good. I think that you're having a little bit of that where it feels like some stuff is kind of hitting and freezing, and a little bit of some stuff kind of hitting at the same time. Like these two looks would really help if the tail got there after the character's head turned. So you kind of had this drag and then this overshoot with the tail. I also think but I think the biggest issue with this one that's kind of striking me is just kind of the staging. This is just not like it's not the best way to see this action happen. Like the tail feels like it's kind of growing out of the top of the head, and then it kind of disappears in some of the frames like this. And it's just kind of hard to see what's going. So I think just having it from just a little bit more of an angle would really help on this one. But otherwise, the bounces are looking really good on this, and I kind of like the personality you got going on. So I have one of the Maya files open here. I'm just going to show you a little bit about what I'm talking about. And sorry, Ryan, I'm just going to kind of use yours to kind of pick on here. Not really picking on it, but so you can kind of see what's going on. So you'll see that when I say it kind of eases in, this is our up and down curve, or translate Y. So this is what controls how the character goes up and down. And as you see as we get in here, as the character moves closer to the ground, this translate Y just starts to flatten out. And so when we go from frame 45, let me go back one. If I go from frame 44 to 45, that's a pretty big jump in value there, right? But then from frame 45 to 46, it's really not much of a jump in value at all. And so that's why it feels like it's slowing down. It's because it is. And so the way we fix that, I know everybody's seen this before, but I want to do it again. The way we fix that is we just break that tangent with this, and then we just kind of adjust this to get these sharper curves in there. And so what we end up with is, feels like it kind of lands a little harder. Now we're also getting a little bit of residual other things going on here. Yes, I know it was made with a student version. Like this translate Z, which is your forward and back. Sorry, I'm just do this. And you see that it kind of eases in there too, and so that's why it looks like as the character is moving forward, it kind of slows down in its forward momentum. So that's another one that you could just, I mean, you could practically set that one to linear, and that would fix a lot of that. And so if we were to track this character's arcs before we made all of those changes, and I'll show you really quickly how to do that. Okay, so this is where it was. Go in here really quickly under animation, animate, create editable motion trail. You'll see that these arcs are not very, they're not very strong. They're not bad, but you kind of see how it kind of eases in right there. And so we could really just go in here and, and even this arc here, as it goes up to the top, it just kind of like swoops up and makes sort of this S shape. So we could really go in there and just kind of beef up a lot of those sections and really make that much stronger. Go back to your camera so you can see this. Just watch what happens when the arcs. If I break this, grab this tangent, just kind of shape that a little bit nicer. Make this a little bit more like this. Break these tangents. So we kind of get this just feeling a little bit more natural. So we get this extra key here. And then also we want to go in here and just kind of change this a little bit. So then that way we have a little bit more control over how this curve looks. And we can just kind of round that out. That arc just feels a little prettier now, a little bit of a better option. And so we can get that with a lot of this stuff. This curve here maybe just needs to be linear as well. Let me pause this and I'm going to open up another. Okay, never mind. I was going to open up another video file, but they're not opening up correctly online because I have a slightly older version of Maya. Anyway, I think hopefully that kind of explains it. The other thing I was going to show you is kind of the way to kind of offset your poses, so you don't have the poses all hitting at the same time. But really, that's just shifting keyframes. You find the keyframes for the tail, and the tail may be hitting at the same time as your keyframe of your squash and stretch for your ball. And you just have that happen just a little bit later, or just not everything hitting at the same time. Some of it you may actually have to build into the pose, but some of it maybe you can actually shift some keyframes from your key poses. So those are the main elements that I would say need to be focused on in this exercise. So use these notes, feel free to make the changes, and then you can resubmit if you'd like to for a better grade. So thanks. I'll talk to you soon. Let me know if you have any questions.